friend just a few days ago, and I was telling her that I was getting ready to come to New Orleans for convention, and that I was still preparing what I was going to say, since I'm going to be speaking in front of almost 10,000 people. Well, I wish I hadn't said anything, because she immediately started freaking out and said, "Oh my gosh, I would be freaking out with you. I hate public speaking. Aren't you scared?" I said to her, "Well, I am now, thank you very much." Heck yes, I'm scared. Who wouldn't be? Delivering a speech in front of almost 10,000 people isn't the most comfortable of settings for me. And then I told her, I don't really, between you and me, I don't really consider myself very good at public speaking. And it is certainly not one of my favorite things to do. There was a time in my life when I never in a million years would have ever thought that I would be delivering motivational speeches to thousands of people. Ever. But listen, I have to muster up the courage that I am able every single time that I come out here. But isn't that how it is for most of the good things that we want in our life? It takes real courage. Courage. Don't we all wish we had more of it? How often does fear hold us back? Allow me to restate that. How often does fear hold you back? Having courage doesn't mean you lack fear. It just means you've gained perspective on the things that you want. It means recognizing you're more afraid of the consequences of inaction than the action itself. Courage is about doing those things anyway, even when you're afraid. So I ask you, what are you afraid of doing that requires courage? We all, every woman who walks this earth, every man, have things in our life that require us to put our big girl panties on and face it head on and get through the fear. But again, having courage doesn't mean you lack fear. It simply means you've gained perspective. It means you've gained perspective for either the good that will come if you act, or sometimes it's simply a perspective of recognizing you're more afraid of the consequences of doing nothing. So I want you all right now, think of something in your life, whether in the past, in the future, or present, that takes courage. Y'all got it? Sometimes our lives are such that it takes courage just to get through your day. Courage just to be in the present. I suspect that there are some within the sound of my voice who need extraordinary courage just to make it another day, or even another hour. To you, I salute your courage. Some need courage just to get out of bed every morning. Some need courage to get on stage and deliver a speech in front of almost 10,000 people. Some of you needed courage to get on an airplane. Perhaps some of you needed courage to even come to convention and be in this very room because you have severe social anxieties. And maybe others need the courage to go back home after convention because your home life maybe isn't the best and you haven't found the courage yet to address it. Some need courage to stay married. Some need courage to get out of a marriage. Some need courage to break the silence of abuse. Some need courage to break the negative family cycles of generations before them. For me, courage isn't only about doing hard things. It's also about having the courage to say no when we should. The courage to say yes when that's appropriate. The courage just to do the right thing, just because it's the right thing. That's really what having courage is all about, isn't it? Courage to do the things that we know we should. And then when we do, aren't we often so grateful we found the courage to do those hard things? We see the growth. We see the change in others and ourselves, and it is so empowering. We all have character traits or tendencies or circumstances that we inherited or that we innately possess. Some of those traits or tendencies or circumstances have served us well and have helped us succeed. Unfortunately, others have led to disappointment, unhappiness, or even self-loathing. As I have been contemplating this topic over the past week, I've come to a profound realization that two of the most important men in my life, probably the two men that I loved the most, my husband and my father, they are both what I refer to as cycle breakers. Being a cycle breaker, in my opinion, is one of the most courageous, honorable, yet difficult things to be. What is a cycle breaker? Or what does it mean to be one? Being a cycle breaker means you recognize and break the negative cycles of your father, your mother, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, or your siblings. Sometimes it's all they know. It's all they've been taught. And it's the only behavior that was modeled for them. And because of that, it's their natural tendencies to repeat the very cycles that they despise. Yet a cycle breaker is capable of putting an end to almost anything that holds them back or is destructive to them or those around them. Simply put, a cycle breaker breaks the negative cycles of generations before them. Oftentimes, the main reason someone repeats something is because everyone else before them did. For example, their mom or dad dropped out of high school, their cousins did, many of their friends did. Perhaps no one in their family had ever finished high school or gone on to college. So why would they? Or worse yet, it never even occurred to them that they could. Sometimes we inherit bad habits or patterns that are passed down from generation to generation. For example, if your father is an alcoholic, the chances are good that his father was an alcoholic. The destructive cycle applies to child abuse, drug addiction, poverty, dropping out of school, or any other from a long list of self-destructive behaviors or thinking errors. That's often why we see dysfunctional families that keep perpetuating themselves onto the next generation. Have I depressed you enough yet? You want some good news? I got some good news. The good news is you have a choice. I have a choice. We all have a choice. You can be the cycle breaker in your family. You can stop the negative influence in your life from getting inside you and pass on healthy attributes and good habits to your kids and to your nephews and your nieces, and frankly, everyone in your life. Dream with me for a moment. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be a great thing to be the first one in your family to do something extraordinary? To break the cycles that were modeled in your family for generations. And then to pass on that extraordinary pattern and way of thinking onto your children and grandchildren. I am pleading with you right now. As sure as I'm standing here on the stage in front of almost 10,000 people, that can be you. It must be you. It will be you. Now, what cycles do you need to break? Does alcoholism run in your family? Do broken relationships run in your family? Does a poverty mentality run in your family? Maybe you've never known financial abundance or financial freedom or healthy relationships, or fill in the blank in your head right now, whatever that is. Have you ever considered that maybe that's because you've never allowed yourself to think that you were capable of those things? Who here has the courage to cast that cycle aside and never pick it up again? All of us, every single one of us in the room, we are all cycle breakers on some level. Every single one of us have cycles that need broken, misconceptions, or model behavior, or expectations that aren't healthy and are holding us back. I'm calling on you to stand up, show up, and speak up if necessary, and change your family's trajectory. Be a cycle breaker. Maybe the cycle in your life that needs to be broken is just a way of thinking. Maybe your mom had a low self-esteem and didn't think that she was worthy of good things in her life. And maybe she learned that way of thinking from her mom. And maybe now you have those same tendencies to think the same way. And now you're modeling that same behavior to your children. Do you have the courage to stop that cycle? You can stop the cycle. Because what you believe is what you will do. Your belief will drive your behavior. So what deep-rooted assumptions about yourself have you been carrying around for the better part of your life? Do any of these phrases sound familiar? I can't because. I'm not good enough because. Life is too difficult because. I'll never because. May I suggest a few replacements? How about I can because, I will because, or I must because. So often it's easy to say, well, this is just the way I am, just the way I was born. My parents were this way and their parents were the same way, and for generations it's just the way my family is. Do we make excuses or try to justify our actions that we know are harmful to ourselves or others? Or do we say, enough is enough? I'm going to be the one to break the cycle, or it may never be broken. If I don't break the cycle, it will continue to haunt future generations. Is that a scary thought? Every one of you should be saying to yourself right now, oh no, not on my watch. It has been said that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. That rings true. But saying and doing are two different things, aren't they? So how do we do it? How do we break the cycles that we want broken? It means that you have to take personal responsibility and stop blaming others, number one. You can't blame your parents or your family history. You can't do that. You can't blame your boss or your friend or your spouse or your boyfriend. And you can't blame God. This is why I say that I believe that being a cycle breaker is the most courageous, honorable, and difficult things to be. Okay, a little personal story here. In July of 1971, my husband, Brown Derek, as we all affectionately call him, was born on an Indian reservation in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. He was born to poor Native American parents in a small shack on a dirt floor. Both his biological parents were alcoholics. The only thing they knew was alcoholism. It's what their parents modeled to them. And now, as destructive cycles go, what his biological parents were modeling for him. And as a result of this alcoholism, his father was also physically abusive. My husband has distinct memories of being very young, witnessing his father beating up his mother, throwing her down a flight of stairs, throwing her through a glass window. And he has memories of abuse and fear. His biological father was an angry and abusive man. At a young age, Child Protective Services was forced to rescue both my husband and his sister, and they put them in foster care for several years. At the age of 7, my husband and his sister were adopted into a loving, wonderful home with wonderful parents, one of whom is with us tonight, his mother and my mother-in-law, and our wonderful woman, Gloria Huscroft. Even though he and his sister were removed from that environment and put into a wonderful, loving home, they both had the tendencies that generations before them burdened them with. His parents were alcoholics, their parents were alcoholics, and likely their parents were alcoholics as well. Unfortunately, my husband's biological sister, who was also rescued by Child Protective Services and adopted into the same loving, wonderful home, she did repeat the exact same cycles, and still to this day, she fights those same demons of alcoholism and drug abuse. I would like to publicly recognize and thank my courageous and handsome husband, Derek, for the cycle-breaking hero that he is. He has become the man, the husband, and father, and everything that his biological father was not. Now that I have 4 kids of my own and a keen understanding of how difficult parenting can be, even under the best of circumstances, I also recognize my dad for the cycle-breaking hero that he is. I am well aware of the dysfunction he lived through as a kid, simply by being born into an abusive and less than perfect family. And that could have easily been my fate, but it wasn't. It wasn't my fate, because he chose to break the cycles of physical and emotional abuse that was inflicted upon him. He wanted to be the father that he did not have. At some point, my dad vowed to be more than the sum of his upbringing. He wanted to break the cycle of physical and emotional abuse. And so he took head on the dysfunctional examples that were modeled for him. Perhaps his tendencies were to be exactly what was modeled to him. But he chose to give his children the childhood that he didn't have. I know it wasn't easy, and I'm sure he feels at times that he failed us in some ways. My dad wasn't perfect, it's true, but neither is any parent. But the fact that he truly gave unconditional love and acceptance, which is something that he did not have, defines his fatherhood for me. Thank you, Daddy, I love you. I admire my dad for many reasons, but none so much as his courage and fortitude on breaking those cycles of abuse. I believe that certain people are saved to come down to earth at that particular time to be that person. To be that person that breaks the cycles and tendencies that have been passed down. How much of the pain people inflict on one another is a byproduct of generations of abuse or neglect? You can be a cycle breaker too. You might not know exactly how. You might feel overwhelmed or unprepared. You might feel afraid or uncertain. You might even be rather pissed off about it. But you were placed on this earth by a loving God to do something extraordinary. There is no one else like you on this planet. So instead of focusing on yesterday's struggles and yesterday's regrets, focus on that superhero cape that you proudly wear and stand and say, I am a cycle breaker. You have the courage to do hard things if you won't give up. So if you are someone from a wounded background, striving to be different, striving to break the cycles from something that is all you know, if you are silently fighting your own internal battles the rest of the world can't see, I want you to know that you are awesome. And you are strong. You have been saved and put on this earth at the perfect time to be the difference, to make the difference for your future generations. Let us all take a moment and ask ourselves, who do you want to be? What is the legacy that you want to leave behind? Allow me to share who I want to be. I want to be a better version of myself every single day. I have amazing parents, but I want to do even better than them. And it's okay to admit that, because I also hope and pray that my children do better than me. We all have cycles to break, all of us. And if you aren't the one to break the cycle, it may never be broken. If not you, then who? Sometimes it's easy to get fooled into believing that happiness comes from staying inside our comfort zone and not doing those hard things. I'm pretty sure I'd rather be sitting out there in the audience in the back row than be up here on stage. I'm pretty sure I'd rather keep my life private. and continue to bury the pain of yesterday's struggles, then talk about them openly and address them head on. Courage. Real courage. Courage is what will get us outside of our comfort zone. One day, we are all going to realize that every single thing we want that we don't already have is outside of our comfort zone. And courage is what will get us there. You have to do the things that no one else is doing, the things that frighten you, the things that others can't do for you, the things that might even make you question how much longer you can hold on and push forward. Why? Why would someone willingly choose to do those things? Here's why. Because those are the things that define you. Those are the things that make the difference between existing and living, between knowing the path and walking the path, between a life of mediocrity and a life filled with happiness and success. You may try and fail again, but in so doing, if nothing else, you will leave a legacy of courage and change. So for your own sake, and your kids' sake, and their kids' sake, start doing the hard things today. I guarantee you will be blown away at just how remarkable you really are and just how amazing life can be. You can do hard things. You can push your bodies and make them stronger. You can stop using food or alcohol or drugs or work or shopping or fill in the blank, whatever your choice of drug is, to avoid the painful feelings and memories inside and begin to feel again. You can face your deepest inner wounds and heal. You can let go of relationships that don't serve you well and say yes to yourself in unconditional love. You are powerful. You are strong. You are worthy. You are lovable. And yes, you are courageous. You are those things. Do you believe that? Do you? Because after all, what you believe is how you will behave. And how you behave is what you will become. Billy Graham once said, "Courage is contagious. When a brave man or woman takes a stand, the spines of others are stiffened." Let us all take strength from those you are sitting right next to tonight. Let us all leave here tonight with a desire to inspire others to be the best version of ourselves, and in so doing, help others to become the best version of themselves. If you leave here tonight and remember nothing else after I leave this stage, remember this. You are powerful beyond measure. You are on this earth for a purpose. You were saved for this particular time to be that person, to do something extraordinary. You have the ability to do hard things. You have the strength and the courage to stand up and say, "I am a cycle breaker." May our God in heaven bless each and every one of you on your personal journey through life. He loves you. I love you. Now take that knowledge and be courageous. Good night, everyone.